tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled is composer Steven Atinsky and artist Sylvia Shap. You may think she's on the set already, but we have a self-portrait of her. Steven Atinsky is an actor, songwriter, and improviser, having appeared in theaters and clubs and living rooms throughout the Southland. He's been writing songs, mostly humorous, for the last 15 years. You played, Steven, on the Dr. Demento show. What did you do on that?
Well, I wrote a song along with Bill Holmes called Dr. Death and the Suicide Machine, which was based on Dr. Jack Kevorkian. And we decided to make a humorous song out of it. And we did it as a rock and roll number with a choir, and Dr. Demento played it on the air, and it was quite fun to do.
Tell us who Dr. Demento is for our viewers all across the country.
Well, Dr. Demento runs a syndicated show of humorous songs, joke songs, anything that'll get a laugh, and it usually runs Sunday nights nationwide. So
is your work out of the mainstream, would you say?
I'd say I'm a little off of the main road, yes.
So tell us some of the names of the other songs you've written over the past 15 years.
There's, the first one I wrote was called I'm a Drifter. And
what did that have to do with?
That had to do with my experiences as a hitchhiker and as a, well, let's call it as a transient when I was avoiding work and different things like that.
So that must have been the beginning of your career.
That was the beginning of my career, and also I decided it would be best to transform myself and be employed and keep the art through the music.
What other titles? Because I think they're funny.
I've got the I Can't Stop I Can't Stop Imitating Jimmy Stewart Blues.
Yes.
And which deals with someone who just keeps doing Jimmy Stewart impersonations, and I do it throughout the song, and it's as if he's in a rehab clinic for Jimmy Stewart impersonators. Why can't you tell your boyfriend goodbye? That was another one. That fits into the more bittersweet love song category. Ironic, bittersweet. I have a whole cachet of those. There's a refrigerator song. Wow. So
you really are a little bit to the underbelly, let's say.
The underbelly, yes.
Who has influenced your writing?
Well, there's a number, but Tom Lear, the Roaches, if people are familiar with the Roaches singing group. I love their lyrics, and most of all, Stephen Sondheim, as far as musical theater goes. There's, nobody better.
Have you ever met him?
No.
You haven't ever had
I would love to someday.
You haven't had a chance to work with him?
No, I would love to someday, yes.
Do you have a hero in the music field that you kind of look up to or think about?
Sondheim would be the one as a composer and especially as a lyricist. He's so brilliant, and I think he gives any aspiring composer something to shoot for.
I know what an actor does, I know what a songwriter does, but what does an improviser do?
Well, I'm with a group called Los Angeles Theater Sports, and we do shows of improvisation, and it's always based on suggestions by the audience. They give us an idea and we run with it and create something right there.
So that's not the musical part of what you do, that's more of the acting part.
Yes, though we do improvise songs as well.
Do you?
Right on the spot.
Do you sing?
Yes.
And do you play an instrument?
I play saxophone and flute and guitar.
Well, guitar could help with your songwriting. Does the sax and the flute help you?
It helps melodically, but as far as writing this musical, that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
I had to write most of that with a tape recorder and just sing right onto it because I don't play keyboards.
So you sang onto the tape recorder. The play we're talking about is We're from Moscow, or Life is Trouble. And it's a project that's completed, that's performed on stage, and Steven composed, directed. Did you direct it
I
as
didn't
well?
direct it. Forrest Brakeman is the director.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it's a musical comedy version of Anton Chekhov's play, The Three Sisters.
Oh, that's very light.
Very light. Now, some people already think the play is a comedy, but usually when you go to theaters, you see it performed very seriously and very tragically, but I find a lot of humor in it, and what I didn't find in it, I added, and through the music, I think we bring out some sides to the story that people may not have seen before.
Do we have any cherry trees or seagulls around?
We may have in the scenery some cherry trees, and a seagull may make an appearance.
What do you think the people who were really interested in the classics are going to think about a musical comedy of The Three Sisters?
They're going to walk out of the theater, probably. I think that, no, there's some of them will get into it and enjoy it and run with it, but there's always a purist who doesn't want to see something tampered with. And I have the utmost respect for Anton Chekhov. This is one of my favorite plays, and that's why I decided to do it.
I love the idea that you say to tamper with, because how do you actually take something like that and then tamper with it?
Well, what I did was I took the ideas and the progression of the story that was already there, and here's a good spot for a song.
Oh, is
here's
that
a good
it?
spot for a song, and I could really, in my mind, lay out where I thought the musical numbers belonged.
You brought, we don't have any tape from the film, but we have a tape that you brought, not a videotape, but a tape. And it has a song with the Three Sisters singing. Tell us a little bit about it, and we'll just kind of play it in a minute.
All right. Well, this is a song. It comes early in the play. It's called Moscow. And from the play The Three Sisters, Irina, Olga, and Masha, the Prozorov sisters, they've moved to this small town after being brought up in Moscow, and they are so overeducated and culturally superior to everyone in the town that they long to go back. I mean, that's all that's important to them, is to return to Moscow. And then everything's going to be okay, because their lives are dull here, they're not meeting the men that they want to meet. And when they return to Moscow,
Is this what we're hearing?
that's what we're hearing right now. Everything's going to be all right. So it's the end of the rainbow for them.
Sounds great.
And Masha, who she's saying, "You'll forget about me," she's a sister who's married already. She's in a bad marriage, and she's fearing that, they'll move away. They'll get to go to Moscow, but she's going to be stuck here no matter what they do.
In Moscow.
In Moscow.
It's great.
Thank
it really.
you.
Who did the costumes? Are they period costumes or contemporary?
We'll be in period costume. Mary Traynor is the costume designer.
And how long did it take you to write this, to find the right spot and check off and to stop every now and then?
It took over 2 years to
Really?
write the music, and I redid the script. I adapted it.
Well, did you have anyone playing keyboard for you?
Well,
or?
what I did was I took my tape recorder, and I'd be singing my songs as I would write them into the recorder. I'd do it in the car or wherever, or taking walks. And then, after I had completed the songs, I went to an arranger by the name of Marty Axelrod, and he was able to put arrangements to all these songs.
Oh, that's how it was done.
Yes.
And then did you collaborate with him with the arrangements?
And then I pretty much, told him
with
what I
him?
had in mind, and then he did a wonderful job with the rest.
Oh, that's interesting. Does that always happen?
I don't know. This is the first time for me. So probably different people do different processes. And of course, if I was a keyboard player, I would have probably put a lot on myself.
Do you think do you have desires of ever going to Broadway?
That's my ultimate desire, to see the show eventually make it to Broadway.
This show,
This show, We're from Moscow, or Life is Trouble.
not a new project.
I'd like this one first, and then the next one to follow it up.
Well, you have to get this one on the boards because it takes you 2 years to write something and get it going.
That's right. So yes, get this one and New York, Seattle, San Francisco, Chicago, lots of good cities.
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
And all through Minnesota. We have watchers in Minnesota.
That's right.
So the great thing about you is that you have a day job. You're an actual person who works.
That's right. I work as a publisher sales rep for Bantam Doubleday Dell.
And what does a publisher's rep do?
What I do is I go into bookstores and I show them the new lists. So what I'll be doing in a month or so is showing the bookstores what's going to be coming out in the fall.
I see, I see.
And sometimes I take authors around. I bring them to interviews like this, and I sit in the green room while they're out being interviewed.
Oh, I see, I see. And when you're sitting in the green room, do you have any specific things that you do? Do you write when you're there?
In my mind, I'm writing a song.
Have any of these writers inspired any?
I think so, yeah. I've worked with like Ann Hood and Tom Robbins and a few others that have inspired me, definitely.
Do you think of yourself as a pop writer?
I think I'm slightly off pop. I'm on the slightly off roads, a little quirky.
But someone quirky, everyday contemporary singer, could you write a song for a...
Sure.
Like whom do you see yourself?
Writing a song for? I see myself writing for Barbra Streisand.
Oh, you do?
And Whitney Houston.
You mean they're not...
I'm not going to limit myself.
You mean they're quirky enough to be singing
They're
your
quirky
song?
enough, sure.
Well, we're gonna make sure they hear about this. You write the songs, and we'll tell Whitney and Barbara.
Thank you.
And they can get it. Thank you, and thank you to Steven. And don't go away, because Sylvia Shap is actually going to come on the set and sit next to her portrait. We'll see you in a minute. Hello, I'm Joan Quinn, and we're back with artist Sylvia Shap, who was born in Toledo, Ohio, and now lives in Los Angeles. Her work has been shown in galleries and museums across the United States. Sylvia has taught as well as lectured in universities throughout California, and her work is in corporate and private collections all over Southern California. Welcome, welcome. And did you go to art school?
Yes and no, Joan. I'm not a school personality myself, although I never discourage anyone from going if that's where they're bent.
I wondered if you actually went to school to learn portraiture.
Actually, my older brother, Ron, taught me how to paint when I was very, very young, and he's the one who was all trained throughout his life academically, and he had his degrees and scholarships, and I just sort of trailed in his shadow, basically.
Is that right?
Yes.
So when he was painting, would you go ahead and paint the same subjects, or not that much of a...
Well, not really. He would give me incredible technical advice, and I would never dare try to do... I always felt that there was no point in my doing anything because everything he did was so far superior. But I do remember when I was very young that I had this very strange urge to try to understand my own nature or being, or figure out some way what I was doing here. And I somehow had the idea that if I could do a very exact replica of myself, that maybe I could study it and figure it out or learn something in the process.
And so you've been doing that since you were a child?
Well, pretty much.
Because this painting really looks like you. And I mean, I've seen other paintings that you've done, and they're so realistic. And I know, it's hard to say, does it really look like me? Do you think it looks like you?
Well, the best I can do about self-portraits is say that it looks like I feel I must look, or like I feel I must be to the outside world at times. This one, I feel in a certain way is more like me than others I've done. But Larry, my significant other, as you know him, he hates this, and he doesn't feel that this is me at all.
Oh, I see. So it is really, that's why I wondered if you thought it looked like you. I think that's one of the problems with portraiture, is when you're painting a person, they see themselves looking a different way than you may paint them, because we're used to photography.
Well, it can be a problem, but over the years I realized that in my particular direction it's really important for me to get as close to how someone that I'm painting sees themselves as possible, because I really am still on the same search to try to find out these eternal truths that are so mysterious, that seem to me like they must come from learning a lot or as much as possible about other human beings.
Well, then how does that happen in your portrait? Is a portrait always a commission?
Not always. Many times, most of the time, my paintings have been commissioned. I try to do my own, and I only do a few paintings a year, so I'm lucky if I can do one or two for myself a year.
Of yourself or people that you want to do?
Well, either. I mean, I try to do as few of myself as possible, but I feel like I owe that sort of token symbol of trying to go through the same thing I put other people through.
Now, would the portraiture be a collaborative experience between you? Does the person have to sit for you?
I used to work only from life for many, many years, and I found it to be like knitting an extra sleeve on a sweater. So I realized that what would be better would be if I could take this very vivid memory that I have that used to haunt me entirely when I would work from life, and I had absolutely, I don't think I even slept during the time that I do these paintings, and I realized that there must be some way to channel that and take those vivid recalls of someone's pores and their the color of each eyebrow to a better, more productive place. So I started, plus I used to have so many problems working from life, and what you said before about people being unhappy. I mean, they'd turn around and they'd see the painting and say, oh, do you really see me like that person? And so I realized from all of these different aspects that it really would be a better thing to incorporate this, recall and how the person sees themselves. And so what I do is I take a lot of photographs of each subject that I paint. Whether I'm going to be commissioned or not, I like to work this way. And I'll select the ones I feel really are how I perceive them and what would be really good route for a painting. And they can say, oh yes, that's just how I see myself, that's just how I feel about myself, I like this, or no, I hate this. And then
you get some input at that point.
Right.
Now what about in their environment? Do you paint them in their environment?
Well, I used to do that. I used to pack up my kit and caboodle and go and move couches and do all of these things. But I do that sort of in a very subliminal way now, so that now the background color becomes maybe very symbolic of the mood of their environment or of part of their color personality. I'll let them have a say about their colors.
I think we have to tell the viewers, because we talk about the background color. You never paint anything in the background. It's just this stark realization of the person on the canvas.
Right, right.
And then, as you say, the background is what you think, the color in the back is what you think. It explains the person?
Well, it may be. It's usually sort of a coincidental jive, just like the painting just happened to match your set. It's so uncanny. It was not deliberate at all, but these kinds of things happen continuously. I might feel a color is right for someone, and they may say, oh, that's my favorite color.
Ah, I see.
Or I'm always showing them color swatches, and they'll point to their color families.
What about what to wear? How do they decide what to wear?
Well, that's a very interesting process with each person. This whole thing is just it's hard to even talk about it. Every person there are different ways are mind-boggling. I mean, one woman wanted to have her heart surgery scars show, so she didn't want to wear anything. And different people have different ideas about how they come across, or some people have no ideas, and they'll say, well, what should I wear? So I go in their closet. Well, we did that, remember? When,
yes.
So it will be some kind of a collaboration, or like something will hit my eye in a deep recess, or and I'll say, what about that? And they'll say, oh, that's my favorite shirt, or well, I don't know, or.
But the funny thing is, you talked about pores and eyebrows and things like that. I think and I did sit for you. You took photographs, and I sat for you both. This was several years ago. But the point was, you would go up to your subject and just stare right into their skin or their nose. It is so off-putting. It's like scary.
Well, I've refined my technique somewhat. I do it a little more furtively more of the time, but I do always warn someone that I'm going to do something strange and look at them real closely. But if I feel someone's very uncomfortable with it, I will back off. But
it's part of the process. It's part of your process, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's like you're picking out different colors, because our skin is not one color, or the hair is not one color. And I think, as I remember, you're picking many, many colors.
Absolutely. But I'm also getting a kind of a psychic reading about the person,
you
to
are.
be honest with you.
I see what you're doing. Now, the other thing is commissioning a portrait a big ego thing?
Well, I don't think it is. I mean, ultimately, the people that buy my work are collecting my work, and I've certainly been commissioned for a variety of amazing reasons. And recently, a son who felt guilty about not visiting his parents enough, actually, yes, he commissioned me so that here I am. You don't ever have to.
Instead of that automatic telephone call, right?
Yes, and so many were different reasons. I mean, even if someone starts off with that kind of reason, they really, these can be so much like Dorian Gray at times, and beyond that, there may be more reckonings for them to come to terms with than they suspected.
You had a big show at Barnsdall Park, the Los Angeles Municipal Art Gallery. Was it difficult to get people to give you their portraits to be in the show?
Not really, because they're all members of my family.
So they didn't mind giving?
They didn't. In fact, the show traveled to the Art Museum of South Texas in Corpus Christi, and it was a really protracted period of time. It was almost a year, and everyone, and then some, let me continue to borrow them for the traveling of the show.
Well, talking about members of your family, I have a portrait of your mother in the catalog.
Yes.
And it shows the stark background. And then next to your mother, tell us a little bit about this. Did she like this painting?
Not at first. Not at first, she didn't. My mother has a terrible problem about self-image, I'm afraid. And I did this knowing that she would have a difficult time, but hoping that she would see how wonderful she is from the painting. And the painting couldn't be more about love and all of the things that I've known about her all of my life, and I feel like she could be about to scold me, or about to laugh, or about to cry, and the stance is typical of her weakness and vulnerability, with her arms behind her back, but also there's a containing of herself and a strength there.
That's great.
As someone was actually, this fellow that came over to see my work was actually very afraid of her from this painting, and
really?
I said he was right.
That's a mother, though. You have that mother, you got that motherly quality. Now here's another family. It's not your family, but it's part of a family together.
Well, to me, each painting is very symbolic of all of our lives and all of different parts of life that we have in common. And to me, this painting is about the different stages of youth, although it's, of course, a particular family. But to me, my overview in painting each painting is that there is a statement or statements being made for everyone to perceive things about themselves.
I think that gives us a little idea about the stark backgrounds and the way you approach things like that. Now, where, once they get the portrait done, do they put them?
Well, anywhere from a closet, I guess, to, well, I don't know why fireplaces are so often linked with the place.
That's why I was asking. Do they put your portraits over the fireplace?
Many of them do, but I always discourage it. I mean, now it's just become sort of a game of nerves or matching wits or something. Don't dare put it over the fire. Well, it's not good for the painting to put it over the fireplace.
One of the, thumbing through some of your bios and knowing some of the things you did, tell us about celebrity, I should say, portraits. Have you done many of those?
Well, I guess I have, although I always forget who the celebrities are that I've done, and I think you asked me the other day, and I always have to stop and think, because to me, in many ways, I prefer doing people who are not celebrities, although of course it's interesting to do celebrities.
You have done celebrities. You were talking about celebrities in the culinary field, which I thought was great.
Right now I seem to be doing that. I'm doing Jacques Pepin and Madeleine Common, who's the head of the Behringer Cooking School, but really more of a culinary historian of her native region. Can
you think of doing, say, a series of chefs or people in that industry?
Well, I could see that happening, but I feel like my body of work is like the Bridge of San Luis Rey, and that each person that I happen into is a path that takes me wherever it's going to take me. So I don't try to make an effort to. I mean, there was a period where I seemed only to be doing doctors. And it just happened, and so there turned out to be a series of doctors, but I didn't actively seek doctors. And speaking of celebrities, one of the doctors that I did, it was the dermatologist who has become famous for being privileged to see Michael Jackson's private parts.
Oh, is that right? Well, I forgot his name.
Dr. Arnold William Klein. There's
Dr. Klein.
Yes,
of course.
In the painting, I call him Arnie Klein.
Oh, that's great. Well, we don't have any more time. I think you've given us such an insight into what's been going on that now we'll look at portraiture in a different light.
Well, thank you, Joan.
Thank you, Sylvia. And thanks to all of you for writing to us at 520 South Grand, 8th floor in Los Angeles. We love the letters you've been sending us. And we'll see you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles.